Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is Battle Brick Road by Eric Weathers and Zeb Hatfield. This is a Indiegogo campaign, completed book right here. About 48 or so pages. I think it's actually a little bit longer. There's no page numbers, but there is an additional story at the end of it, which I'm not going to cover in this particular video. But let me get some background on this book. So Eric Weathers is pretty well known in the Comicsgate crowd and in the indie comic sphere, especially crowdfunded indie comics, for being a letterer. So he letters a lot of stuff. Very, very well-known letterer. Does a pretty good and solid job on pretty much everything he works on. And he also did a book a long time ago that I reviewed on the channel, which was a Flying Fortress. Pretty solid book. Obviously a very early effort by him. So not exactly the greatest art, I would say, but a lot of work into it and a lot of heart, I would say, and definitely a lot of improvement. So Battle Brick Road is his latest sort of endeavor that he's been going on. And just to get it out of the way, since I think a lot of people who probably might have been clicking on this and are interested, this campaign was quite late. And you can tell how late it was because this cover was done in like 2020 and it's 2022 right now when we actually got this book. And, you know, I got to dock points there just because, hey, being late is being late. There's no way around it. And a lot of crowdfunded books, to be fair, suffer from this problem. And Eric, I think I'm pretty certain he was like several months to, I think, a year late, somewhere around there. So not good, but he did eventually fulfill. And more importantly, the fulfillment was very, very good. Excellent packaging. A lot of goodies, and I definitely cannot complain about the quality of this book. This book feels very substantial, good quality. There's a bit of a gloss finish here. Cover's pretty solid right here, except it's got the weird thing on the back here. I am kind of weirded out that there's no Eric Weathers or Zeb Hatfield. It's kind of left right here to the top. And then also there's nothing in the back like a synopsis. It's just an art piece. I kind of always like those synopsises, especially if you have like a perfect bound book, just because perfect bound books, you almost feel like they're going to be in like a Barnes & Noble or a library someday. So I almost feel like there should be a synopsis right here. But that's okay because there's a really cool foreword in the beginning of it by Zeb Hatfield. Pretty nice. I'm not going to go over it. I think if you pick up the book, you'll enjoy reading it. It's just a little foreword from these two creators here who are both natives of Kansas. Obviously, very important because this book is essentially a Wizard of Oz reimagining, sort of an alternate Wizard of Oz. So obviously Wizard of Oz is now a public domain property. So pretty much anyone can make a Wizard of Oz story if they want to, similar to like Sherlock Holmes and all that kind of fun stuff. And that's what Eric and Zeb decided to do here. And what I will say right now, since I'm like 3 minutes in and I haven't really said anything about the book itself, is that just quick sort of no spoiler review is book is pretty good. It's pretty darn good. I think I will comment that Eric's art, especially in terms of just overall figure quality, perspective, and just his angles and dynamic aspect of his art, has dramatically improved from Flying Fortress. His stuff here on Battle Brick Road is very, very good. I really do enjoy it. I really look forward to seeing his continued work here because I think Eric is on some good stuff right here. If he keeps improving, keeps getting better, we're going to see some really special art from him down the line. What I will say as a criticism to him is that he probably does need to work a little bit more on layouts. That's just my opinion. There's a couple layouts in this book that I felt visually they just jumped way too much panel to panel, like what was happening. Like too much action happened off the panel that there was just too much that you as the reader had to infer in order to jump from one panel to the next. And I think that's just To me, I don't think that's very good layouts. I think the layout should flow and really easily tell the story visually, right? I think there were a couple areas in the book where I felt Eric was, just a little bit shy of the mark there, just as a criticism of the art. Also, I think some of his faces, especially like the location of his eyes and his noses with respect to the head, were in a few spots a little off. Nothing like major. Just a few times I noticed, and I was like, huh. But otherwise, I really didn't have much to complain about his art. Very, very good work, and definitely incredible improvement compared to his past work for sure. As far as Zeb Hatfield's storytelling, it's actually pretty solid. I thought it was, he has an interesting plot going on. I think he definitely has like a good, I would say, feel for what he's trying to do with the characters. I think his characterizations are very good, and his intentions and his themes are coming across in the book. I will say that he uses a very modern storytelling style. So just heads up, I know I complain about it all the time, and I know some people don't agree, but this is very much modern writing. So expect lots of dialogue, more dialogue and dialogue. So if you're expecting any third person, narration via caption boxes, my personal favorite, thought balloons, it's not going to happen. It's a dialogue fest going on in here. So, but that being said, Zeb does a very good job with the modern style of storytelling. It is pretty decent execution. There's a couple places I feel like he could improve in just let's say the flow of the dialogue. And I think there's a couple areas where I feel he probably really, really, really needed third-person narration caption boxes to kind of explain the world a little bit more, because I think that's the big problem here. Is the world of this book is so different than the Wizard of Oz that you and I know or are familiar with, or I guess the public is familiar with, I should say. That I feel some explanation and a little bit of just good old-fashioned dry narration or exposition would do a lot better than characters just bloviating about it, right? There's a lot of like panels where characters are just talking, explaining stuff. And, some of it works in the context of the story, and some of it is just sort of like, oh, this character just talks. This is kind of one of the weaknesses of the modern style of storytelling, is that you end up having to have characters do exposition dumps, right? And because you're only choosing dialogue balloons, that's the only way to exposition is some character somewhere is going to have to come in and basically, just barf a bunch of word soup at you about how the world works, right? And, you could have a character that specifically does that, so you could kind of write it into the story. I just don't understand why everyone seems to be very anti caption boxes or anti thought balloons. It seems to be, to me, an almost illness of the modern writing style, but whatever. To be fair, also Eric Weathers has gone on record he's not a fan of thought balloons. I think mainly because he just doesn't like the way it looks. Being a letterer, I get it. I suppose I've kind of messed around with lettering in Photoshop, or I should say not Photoshop. What is it? Illustrator, right? And it can be a little wonky to make a thought balloon look good in Illustrator. Though, then again, most of the old school comics were hand lettered, so maybe that's the reason why, right? Anyway, I kind of gone on enough. Let's kind of rough through this book right here. I don't want to necessarily give away too much of it, right? So I'm going to go pretty fast right here and just give you a flavor of this book right here. So we kind of open up, and basically this is like a dystopian kind of background. So if you can imagine like Interstellar, that Christopher Nolan movie, basically the Midwest of America is completely covered in dust. And so you kind of have like a Mad Max sci-fi sort of thing. And we kind of get thrown in media res with Dorothy here, who's the main character, basically in these sort of helijets flying into basically a no-go danger zone and whatnot. And They get accosted by the flying monkeys, of course, of Oz fame. Except these flying monkeys are pretty evil as they rip people's brains apart and whatnot. And again, here's an example, right? So, here's an example of what I was mentioning about the layouts, right? So here, like, Monkey's chasing after, it looks like she's running further into the jet. She says, Toto, get to the escape pod. Toto has a little beep, and then she has this little thing where she's shocked face, and then she suddenly comes from, like, the front or the cockpit as to flying out the back. And that's like a really big layout jump. And it's not bad. I can infer what happened here. It just feels kind of like there's almost a visual logic jump right here. And this is, like, in my opinion, an area where Eric can work on for the next comic book, right? By the way, one weakness of this book, spoiler alert, is not a complete story, which, for those of you who were following this book from the beginning, shouldn't be a surprise. Eric kind of said it would be like a 3-part installment, which I don't know if I really agree with that, just because it seems awfully long to tell the Wizard of Oz, especially at the pace that he's going. But, maybe he's got some ideas with Zeb here. So that being said, I'm not too disappointed that it's not a complete story, even though I do dislike that for most of these crowdfunded comics, just because I do feel it really ruins their value when you do that. Remember, this is a $25 purchase. So even though the quality is definitely there and you could tell the work was put into it, it always feels kind of like a jip when they make it like, oh, this 3-part, 4-part, 12-part, Indiegogo. It's like, dude, it's gonna take you like 2 to 3 years to do every single one of these, man. You telling me it's gonna take you a decade? You're gonna do Indiegogo for a decade? Again, I feel the value of compressed and that classic 1980s storytelling style. I don't know why people just don't want to go to it. They want to do the modern stuff. So, what are you gonna do? Again, overall though, quality of the comic is definitely there. Just a heads up to my long-term viewers. Again, not a complete story, but it does have a lot of stuff going on, and it is very interesting. So we get a flashback, which is a bit jarring as well. You have this jarring jump, and then you jar to a flashback. And it's basically Dorothy and her dad. They're running away. This is actually kind of fun. I actually enjoyed this scene a lot. And then Toto comes flying out. And I always found this Toto design to be kind of hilarious. It's just Eric just wanted to draw a ball in perspective. It's like, can I get away with just drawing a sphere in perspective? But overall, pretty good. Anyhow, you kind of get a little bit of a cliche, father, having to leave their child because of some secret thing that he's not going to reveal because the daughter has to chase after him to go find said secret thing. It's a little bit cliche, but it ends up working okay. And I think Zeb's dialogue is pretty passable in this end. I think one area that was really cool. I like the villain design here. It's almost like a mech Iron Man kind of suit. It's pretty cool. I think the only thing I don't like here, and again, this is another nitpick on the layout, right? You see this character, and he like opens up basically like a trap shield right here, and then Dorothy's dad pulls out a gun, and then there's a blam, and then he just gets defeated, right? I think this would have been like a way cooler opportunity for Eric to just show how powerful this character is by showing more of an action panel rather than panning to Toto, who's just looking on. But anyway, he takes the dad, and we get another basically flash forward, right? Again, this really got, please consider third person narration, caption boxes. They really, really do make a difference, because right here, again, you have a jarring jump back into the future, but not really the future. But we don't really know. We have to infer again, right? And it's okay. I can kind of infer because I've read this like 3 times now. But it's a little jarring, right? So again, this is all technically dialogue, even though there's a caption box here, right? But this is her talking. And this is her again talking to Toto. Basically, it's a big exposition dump via dialogue. Not necessarily bad. It's actually pretty decently written. Just again, Just pointing out for those of you who kind of watch my channel, some of my beefs about modern writing style, right? But anyway, she ends up getting caught by her uncle. Her uncle pulls her in. Actually, here's another thing that I kind of wanted to. Again, it feels like I'm criticizing the creators a lot here, but it's all in good intention. I'm not trying to be mean or anything. I did enjoy this book quite a bit. I just feel like since it's going to have a second part, you might as well look at some things to improve on, right? Hopefully they look at it and improve on it. I don't know. But the Toto basically is supposed to operate like an R2-D2. So it uses basically these little beep boops right here. And she understands what the robot is saying, but you, the reader, don't understand what the hell he's saying. You have to infer it from the dialogue. And what I will say is I'm not a huge fan of this just because it makes the dialogue very disjointed. You have to kind of like realize that Toto is talking to Dorothy here. And it's made even more disjointed because the word art, which is supposed to represent Toto, it doesn't really pop. Like a lot of the colors kind of match, blend into the background very well. Like, I almost feel like Toto, it would be better served by just literally giving Toto a balloon rather than word art, right? But again, it's just my little beef right here. When I was it's all dialogue, so all the dialogue has to flow, right? Like, the dialogue has to basically move like silk and butter, basically full Alan Moore level of quality, right? If you're going to go full dialogue like this. And there's a lot of areas where it's just a little bit, it's a little bit rugged, right? Anyway, so she ends up visiting her uncle, who's pissed at her for trying to hack into his servers. But he gives her the sort of belated news that they found her dad. Her dad is apparently trapped in a place called Oz. And her daughter has to go follow the yellow brick road to find him, right? Well, Oz is apparently somewhere in Kansas, which apparently is basically... it's basically like the setting of Fallout 3. So she has to go fly in there and find her dad in the middle of Kansas, right? So then we flash forward again to her flying out of the plane, pulls a Glock on this gorilla or this flying ape, and then Toto comes to the rescue, gets a escape pod, and is able to sort of catch her. Again, very jarring jump right here, for those who notice. Like, it's inferred that there's a door open and she jumps in and she's in the pod. But it's a little bit weird the way the panels work. But anyway, the point being is that she ends up landing in Oz. And Oz ends up being very, very different than what she imagined. It was supposed to be basically a desert wasteland. And she ends up basically landing in... I don't know, basically springtime, Michigan or something. I don't know. Looks really, really nice. But anyway, she has to deal with some crazy dude that looks like Godot from Ace Attorney. And walks out and definitely does not look like Kansas. I've been to Kansas. Kansas is not that hilly or mountainous. It is very, very flat. But anyway, obviously something's really crazy here, and what ends up happening, it's kind of like a combination of like zombies and They Live and Last of Us kind of atmosphere. As she's running around, eventually is able to come face to face with the Wicked Witch of the East, who apparently kind of looks like a Metal Gear Solid. I swear to God, this looks like a Metal Gear Solid, like Metal Gear Solid 4, I think. It's like a boss from Metal Gear Solid 4. Which isn't necessarily bad, but looks kind of weird. Anyhow, pretty sweet art by Eric, too, in this. Also, I want to go back to here. I love how, like every single one of these pods has, like, 3 scars. What the fuck? How did the world government is able to afford scars? You know how expensive these rifles are? Anyway, so she ends up defeating the Wicked Witch of the East. You can probably guess how she defeats it, but not going to go too far into it. And then they end up on the Yellow Brick Road, and after some fighting with basically this combination of lion, tiger, and bear. She ends up coming face to face with the Scarecrow. One thing I have to complain here is the Scarecrow kind of just shows up. And I know this is the Scarecrow because I've been following the campaign the whole time. It's kind of like said in all the advertisement that this is Scarecrow. But I do kind of dislike that it's not explicitly, introduced that he's the Scarecrow. He just kind of yells at her like, "Move now." And then she just kind of does what he tells him to do, right? And then she's like, doesn't even ask questions. She's like, "Okay, I'll just do what you want." What is it? It's like the freaking it's like total 80s, action flick right here. Come with me if you want to live. Anyhow, and that's pretty much it as far as the main story. There is an additional short comic by, I think this is 6 a.m. Comics, and it was actually pretty good too. I'm not going to review it on this channel. This video's gone long enough. But to just kind of summarize, pretty good book overall. Enjoyed it. Felt it was worth the money. Though I do feel there is definitely a lot of room for improvement for Eric and Zeb on this book. And hopefully they, consider what I kind of brought up here. Because I don't think I'm necessarily the only one that points these things out. And I feel a lot of times when you are doing, at least for me, when I'm trying to do a review for these indie comics, sometimes it's very easy for me to point out things. And then sometimes certain books just have a feel that I just don't really like for one reason or another. And I hate when I review those kind of books. I try to make those reviews short just because I always feel unfair because there's just something I don't like. In this particular book, this book did not have that. Everything was more of like small little technical knickknacks, but that didn't mean that the book didn't work. It just wasn't what I felt would be the best way to execute what the creators were attempting to do. And that's, again, it's just my opinion, right? But it's one that I feel is merited based on what I have read and what I find to be, books and stories that, last, or stand the test of time, to say, right? But anyhow, this has gone way long enough. That's the review. Let me know what you guys think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on Battle Brick Road by Eric Weathers and Zeb Hatfield, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.